In a previous video, I talked to you guys about my own experience with lymph stagnation. So be sure to check that one out because it goes into a lot more detail about what I am experiencing, how it feels, and what I'm doing to correct it. Today, I just wanted to cover a couple of other common symptoms so that you have more understanding of what this might look like. In men and women, it does show up slightly different, but there's also a lot of similarities. So let's go over the similarities first. Chronic fatigue. If you're waking up and you're not feeling well rested after a great night of sleep, then chances are that something's maybe a little bit off. If you had a poor night of sleep, we would have a different thing to talk about. But if you're getting consistent sleep and it's at a regular time and for regular intervals, so say 8 hours a night, and you're still waking up with that brain fog, kind of heavy feeling, that's a sign that lymph is not draining properly. Speaking of brain fog, most men and women will eventually experience some form of brain fog where they just don't feel like they're firing on all cylinders. Think of a hangover. What does it feel like the next day after you've had just too much to drink? You feel dehydrated, your body might actually ache, and you just feel a little off. Things aren't working as well as they could, and you're quite sluggish and slow. This is common for the symptoms of brain fog and what it would feel like. And brain fog eventually will happen because lymph, the toxins that are building up in the body, is no longer being flushed out. It's not getting into the circulatory system and it's just backing up. When it backs up, eventually it makes it into the brain. And so you will have a harder time thinking straight. And cognitive impairment does take place. Another common sign would be changes in pressure. So if you're starting to get a pressure headache, a sinus headache, a tension headache because of fluctuations in the weather, very common sign that the lymph is not draining properly. Your lymph is responsible for all fluid, interstitial and in the cells as well. And if the pressure in the body, like if you have too much lymph that's built up, then pressure changes outside will create an environment where it feels like an explosive pain. And it tends to, create a tension headache or a migraine. So not being able to regulate those pressure changes from the outside to the inside, which also would impact your blood pressure, another very common sign. For men and women, weight gain, that is not necessarily rapid. It can be over a long period of time, but it's really difficult to get rid of. So think about the areas in your body that you are collecting and hanging on to that weight, and despite how many, how much calorie restriction you do or working out, it just feels like it always is there. For men, I hear this a lot. The complaint is the love handles. It's the distended belly. So think Santa Claus. This is all lymph fluid that has backed up. Yes, there's probably some fat, but if it's a very large distended belly, that is likely to be lymph fluid that's hanging out in the gut. So it's hanging out in the stomach, the small intestine, and the large intestine. And when that happens, it actually puts pressure on all of those organs and it creates expansion. And when you have that expansion, that is a perfect environment for leaky gut to start taking place. One of the biggest things you need to know about your lymph system is that 70 to 80% of the lymph system sits within the gut. And your lymph system is responsible for eradicating the body of abnormal cells and disease, infection, bacteria, viruses. So if you have maxed out and you have all of this lymph fluid that's just stagnating in the body, then think about the fact that all of the toxins and the waste and the things that need to be flushed from the system are just hanging out in the body. So that's what's causing that swelling. Swelling in general is another very common sign of lymph not draining properly. This looks like edema. So think, porky fingers, swelling of the joints, swelling of the ankles. If you get on a plane and you typically swell, a very common symptom. If you have worked out, walked outside, gone for a bike ride, jog, anything like that, and your rings feel really, really tight, very common symptom. So any kind of swelling. Skin rashes, eczema, acne, psoriasis, anything that looks like a blemish on the skin that wasn't there before, this is really common as well, because eventually what happens is that the toxins will take the exit that they can. If they can't get out of the body through natural flushing of the system, then they're going to get out of the body through the pores. And when that happens, depending on the type of lymph issue that you're having, whether that's vata, kapha, or pitta related, it will show up differently. So often a pitta related expression would look like really inflamed acne. So think zits, cystic acne, the pus kind of filled red, really painful blemishes. These are very, very common signs and symptoms as well. Food sensitivities. So for me, one of the critical things that I noted about 5 or 6 years ago now, let's see, I'm 47. I think my last miscarriage was when I was about 40. And one of the things that I noticed is when I cut out gluten, I started to have, I ended up with less brain fog. I had more capability again all of a sudden. I had more energy. I didn't have the fatigue that I was feeling. It ends up that I was sensitive to gluten, and upon releasing that from my body and from my diet, I gained back energy that was used otherwise to basically create inflammation and fight the proteins in gluten. So gluten and dairy sensitivities in particular, any kind of food allergy is often a sign of a lymph system issue. So pay attention to that. Let's see what else. We talked about the extra weight gain, cold hands and feet. So constipation, cold hands and feet, not having enough circulatory, not having enough blood circulating, not circulatory, circulating through the extremities all the way to the fingers and toes. If this is common for you, that you're feeling cold, even on a sunny day or the slightest breeze, that's probably because you don't have enough movement in the body to really create the right environment for that basal temperature to stay level. If the basal temperature is not level and you have vasoconstriction, which means that your capillaries and your lymph capillaries have constricted and they're no longer dilated, you can't push blood and nutrients and circulate oxygen throughout the body. So really important to pay attention to that as well. Let's see, what else? Frequent illness. This is a big one. So if you experience a lot of hay fever, allergy symptoms, cold, flu, sinus infections, if you're the first person that seems to get sick with everything, you probably have a compromised immune system. And guess what? Your lymphatic system is part of the immune system. Your lymphatic system is the one that's responsible for eradicating the body of bacteria, viruses, disease, abnormal cells, all of this stuff, and it circulates the white blood cells. So it circulates the necessary T cells, the attack and killer cells, if you will, of the immune system to go to those sites, create the inflammation, and push that virus or bacteria out of the body. So if you are the one that's getting sick all the time, chances are that your lymph system is not working properly. Those are the most common symptoms. There are tons of others that we could go into more detail about, but I wanted to at least give you a handful that were in addition to the ones that I previously discussed. Women in particular, for you, pay attention to your menstrual cycle. If anything changes, if it's painful, if you're going through a lot of gas and bloating, low back pain, breast tenderness, swelling of the lymph nodes, that is a sign that something is not working properly in your lymph system, and we probably need to discuss that. I hope you found this interesting and helpful. Check out the other video. It's a little bit longer, and it does talk about my own personal journey and what I'm doing right now to combat my own lymph stagnation. All right, I will talk to you guys later.